Everybody, if you're watching this, you're most likely involved in one way or another with emergency management. Whether that means that you're the chief of police, or a medical staff member, a volunteer, a bystander, a victim, or even a family member that's been involved with an emergency. So what I'm going to first discuss with, because it really is the backbone of everything that I'm going to be discussing for the next few minutes, is GIS and what it is. It stands for Geographic Information Systems, and it's simply how we use data that has a geospatial component to it. And that geospatial data can be in the form of an address, a GPS location, or even a street corner or a picture. It can literally tell us exactly where it has its place on Earth, and it can also tell us a story about what's happening at that location over time. In context of emergency management, we want to see what the data can tell us in a situation where it can be the difference between a lot of damage to a building or even a whole city area, or even between life and death. So what you're seeing right now on the screen is something called ArcGIS Online, and it's a portal that was made through ArcGIS Online. And ArcGIS Online as well as ArcGIS Pro are two of the most widely used forms of GIS today in terms of computer map making. And the two work in tandem to sort of create and share maps all over the world for a myriad of different reasons. The 9 things that you see in front of you have been tailored for emergency management, but also for a certain geographic area, which is Hudson County, New Jersey. The specific county, which is right off the coast of Manhattan in northeastern New Jersey, is one of the most densely populated places in the entire world, and they are no strangers to periods where emergency management is vital. So I'm going to jump right into it, and I'm going to go to the first form, which is a PDF version. It's this application right here. Already loaded it, and essentially I want to go through this one first because I wanted to get it out of the way. Not get it out of the way, but for those of you especially who aren't necessarily familiar with GIS or reading maps, it's a little it's a little difficult to decipher, but it is probably the only form of the 9 of these objects that you're seeing here again that is a static map, and it doesn't really change. What you're seeing in the bottom right corner is essentially the outline of Hudson County itself and the grid that is associated with it. If you're not very conversed with coordinate systems, it's just essentially a way that we can sort of analyze a place on the planet in a unified manner. So moving on from that, there's a couple of different ways of organizing these 9 elements, and one of them are web applications. Of these 9, there are 3 that are web applications, and the first one that I want to go to is called Situation Awareness Web Application that was made. Now, this one also, again, there's Hudson County, which is in gray, and the red areas show you the areas of most vulnerability when it comes to flood damage. The application was made specially for the preparation and the ability we have to mitigate effects of natural disasters before they hit. And the things on the top right here, because you'll be seeing them in a lot of the applications that I'll be showing you, are widgets, and there are legends. You can go to the layer list. This is a base map gallery, so you can change what the underlying map looks like. Some are better than others for different circumstances, but topographic ones are typically the go-to. The next app that I'm going to go to is called an Operations Response Viewer Map, which also has been open. There again, you can kind of recognize the area. This app goes into the next phase, or just another phase into the disaster in terms of chronologically, so that while the disaster is taking place, this app can be used to aid those who are in need of support, but also it can be used to communicate to those who are part of the relief efforts to do their best to minimize the damage or the casualties in the area. So some of the things that you'll see, and it's included in a couple of other applications that I'll show you, but the blue outline is essentially the extent to the emergency situation. The evacuation zones are the ones in red, and the closed roads are the red lines. The points that you see are evacuation shelters as well. So moving on to our third and final application, that will be our public information web application. This one bears resemblance to the one that I just showed you, but there's a couple of extra things that are added into this one as well. You can see the features that were showed you as well. This green line that I forgot to mention is actually just an evacuation route. But what I can also show you about this is it also includes some federal weather incident reports, and this was a small craft advisory, which is the closest that we have to Hudson County. But if you go on even to a grander scale, you can see them all over the country for different reasons. This one's an excessive heat warning. This one is probably for, tropical storm warning, and it is the season for that. So there are many different things, but it offers just a different perspective to the application that you just saw before. So the next group of applications that I want to, they're not necessarily called applications, they're called story maps. And this is actually my personal favorite, just because they do tell a story, and I think GIS's ability to tell a story is one of its greatest strengths. So the data is all laid out for you in many cases, and the story maps are essentially something you can toggle through, and the maps can be self-explanatory, and they're also coupled with many different media outlets, whether it's videos, pictures, other websites. It's a great way to show someone who especially isn't versed with GIS technology or maps to know what's going on during an event. So the first one that I'm going to show you is the hazard and emergency preparedness application. Nope, it's this one here, and it goes through a bunch of different tabs, and this shows essentially Hurricane Sandy and the flood that it caused. It goes through the national flood layer, which is designed by FEMA, social vulnerability, which is based on demographics and other things that could cause people to be disproportionately affected by a disaster. This is something that you saw before, but it's essentially place vulnerability when it comes to flooding, community lifelines. All of these tabs have their own role in telling a story about that disaster, which is in this case Hurricane Sandy. The next map is a story journal map, which is another version of a story map, but it's in a different setting in the sense that it was made for the purposes of telling what happened exactly during Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy, if you don't know, it was a hurricane technically, but by the time it hit the shores of New Jersey, it was technically a tropical storm. They called it Superstorm Sandy, but it caused a ton of damage. It is only second to Katrina in terms of the price tag that it caused. But besides the point, this story map shows you really in a story sense what happened before, during, and after. Pictures, videos, other maps were employed, and also what can be done in the future to help out as well. I think they're visually stunning, and the story that they can tell is quite profound, and I think anybody can really understand what's going on here. The last set of things that I'm going to cover are surveys, and this is really important to people who don't really have a strong background in GIS as well. The first one is a preliminary damage assessment form and the application is called Survey 123 Connect. It's a desktop application, but it's also one that you can open on your tablet or mobile device. This is the form, and it basically is one designed for the visual assistance to collect reported damages and other incidents, and it's in line with FEMA's assessment for the disasters. Data reported here can collect that can also act as an input to the last product of this portal, which is the dashboard, which I'll get to in a little bit. The other one is a crowdsourcing application, and this is the form for that one. It's not necessarily tailored to FEMA's expectations, but it's along the same lines, the same thing. The last one is an operation dashboard, which is essentially kind of a control panel. So you can see all of the things that populate the map that come from these surveys, and when the data comes in, they will automatically categorize and analyze themselves, and it's, again, a beautifully stunning thing. So I really hope that you got some things out of GIS applications and all these products that can really save lives at the end of the day. This has been John Ahluwalia, the author and creator of what you've just seen, and thank you for your time to listen and hopefully learn about GIS and emergency management. Hopefully you'll find it as fascinating as I do. Thank you.